And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today, we are talking about Coby White, and we are doing a player grade for his season. And so we're going to be talking about the grade that he got this season. Next, we're going to be talking about if the Chicago Bulls should trade Coby White. And so before we go ahead and jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Bazzella's slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button, and you also hit the like button as well. You join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. We are talking about Coby White, and we are talking about his season grade. And so I'm going to give Coby White an A-. I think that he had a fabulous season, and I think that there were several things that really just get you optimistic, I think, as a Chicago Bulls fan with what Coby White was able to do this season. And so let's go ahead and start with just really point number one before we jump into the numbers. And that is that Coby White was able to once again show that he was able to adjust to multiple roles, because he came into this season, he knew that he was going to have to share the backcourt with Josh Giddey. And I think that they both did a fabulous job as far as figuring it out, how they could make each other better in this backcourt. And so that's point number one. He figured out, how to play alongside of Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey learned how to figure out to play alongside of Coby White as well. Next, Zach LaVine. I think that is another thing that we forget about, is that Zach LaVine was in the backcourt with Josh Giddey and him. And so that was an adjustment period. And so he had to adjust at the start of the season there, along with a new offense that the Chicago Bulls ran. So it was geared towards getting up and down the floor, shooting a lot of three-point shots and things like that. And so that took a little bit of an adjustment. And I think that he really excelled at that. I thought that he stayed into it. He just kept chipping away. And then finally, when it was his time to really take on a role that really fits, Coby White, his skill set as far as being a scorer, he went ahead and excelled at the end of the season. And so that's point number one. Point number two, when we go ahead and jump into the numbers, I think that once again, Coby White has, I think, statistically a very good year for the Chicago Bulls. And so as we bring that up, I think that the first number that we take a look at is the scoring. The scoring did jump up slightly. I feel like that anytime that you see an increase in numbers, I think that is always a good sign. He went from 19.1 points a game last season up to 20.4 points this season. That is a nice jump, considering that, again, at the end of the season, he had to adjust to really the scorer's role and being really a closer for this team down the stretch. So I think he did a terrific job there. The next, one of the things that Coby White is really criticized for is his defense. And his defense actually went up. He got some more steals this year. He was at 0.7 last season. He was at 0.9 this year. So the activity in the passing lanes and things like that, that is something that you definitely want to see. I'm not saying that he's an elite two-way player, but you do see the signs of the effort there with the steals. And so that is point number two there in the numbers. Next, another thing that we loved about Coby White and what he did this season, and just really excelling, going to the free throw line, and he took his percentages up. In fact, he went from 83.8%, last season to 90.2% this season. Great jump there. I loved his assertiveness and his ability to get downhill and draw the contact and get to the free throw line. That really shows another jump in his game, because he wasn't just settling for three-point shots. Next up, I know that it wasn't a jump in the three-point percentage, but it was very similar. He was at 37.6% from downtown a season ago. He was at 37 this year. And so I think that is solid for him to stay right in line with that number, especially with the adjustments that he had to make offensively there. And then when you look at the free throw attempts, he went from 218 a season ago up to 277. So going back and looking at his free throw percentage, and you see that the rate went up as far as him getting to the free throw line. He also made more threes this year. He had 216 threes this year. He had 209 last season. So that was very good to see. Some of the down things with him, The rebounds went down a little bit. So it went from 4.5 to 3.7 rebounds a game. He went from 5.1 assists to 4.5 assists this year. So those went down slightly, which is why I had to take the grade down slightly there. But then again, like I said, it comes down to just him having to really adjust to another role. And I think another thing that I liked about Coby White is that he really established himself, I think, towards the end of the season, because when you look at the March numbers, I thought that those were fabulous. He scored, 27.7 points a game. He shot the basketball at a 49.5% field goal clip. That was terrific. In April, he had 22 points, 54.4% from the field, and he also shot 40% from downtown. So that was incredible as well. And you just got to give Coby White a ton of credit, man, because not only did he put up the numbers and really show some growth there and making the adjustments with the offense, but another thing that was pointed out, and this was in Elias Schuster's article as well. And if you go into this, he's talking about just how clutch that Coby White was. And I was just very impressed with what Coby White was able to do as far as just closing in games, because I know that, the Chicago Bulls were in some tight games and things like that, but just to see how well he did, he's 26 in clutch points in the NBA. So that's huge. The fact that he's top 30 there, he had 75 points scored in the clutch. And also to his free throw percentage, we talked about how it went up. He was at 94.1% as far as his free throw percentage when it came down to the clutch. And he shot 50.9% from the field in these games in which it was clutch time. And so, look, you love that about Coby White. You love the fact that he is a clutch player. And that leads us to just the last point, and that is, should the Chicago Bulls trade Coby White? And so the answer is no. I think that the Chicago Bulls should not be looking to trade Coby White. I know that there's a lot of noise out there and a lot of rumblings, especially with, the new management with Joe Dumars out at the Pelicans now. I believe he's in the front office. And then so there's a lot of noise that maybe Zion Williamson would be a player that could be on the move. And maybe the Chicago Bulls would be interested in maybe shipping off a player like Coby White. That's another video. But I don't think that the Chicago Bulls should do so. I think that with the things that we're talking about here, Coby White is showing you that he's definitely a part of your younger core. He's showing you that he's a player that, look, he may not be a franchise type of player. He may not be a superstar, but I certainly think that he's trending towards being an all-star. I think that he definitely is an all-star. And there's certain things that Coby White does that don't show up in the stat sheets, and that's his leadership. And I've said this before. I think that Coby White is the kind of guy that he wants all the smoke when it comes to dealing with being the leader of this team. And so you love that. And one of the things that the Chicago Bulls really struggled with this season was getting an identity. And I think that Coby White is one of those players that is going to be responsible for this team really getting this identity, not only offensively, but I think defensively as well. And really, I think that I see him as a player that is going to help this team really turn things around for the long haul. So I would not trade Coby White. I know that there's the 140 rule and you have the extension coming up. I think you have to find a way to get him and Josh Giddey taken care of. And then you need to figure out ways to, I think, figure out the front line, because both of these guys, I'm talking about Josh Giddey and Coby White, they really played well with the bigs that we had. And so I can only imagine what happens when you add another big, you add another young wing to go along with these guys. I think that you could see them throwing lobs, coming off screens, knocking down shots, really opening up the game. And I think defensively, they're going to compete enough. And then they're going to have these wings and then also to these centers on the back line that can maybe erase some of these defensive mistakes and things like that. So it's all about team building. I think that Coby White is certainly one of those players, and you should not trade him. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you're thinking. Do you feel like the Chicago Bulls should be trading Coby White, or do you think that they should definitely hold on to him? And then next, with his season grade, I gave him an A-. Like I said, I talked about how he did dip a little bit as a playmaker and as a rebounder, but there were tons of things to love about what Coby White did. I think that he maybe has one of the better upsides moving into this next year. And so, yes, he didn't get the A plus, but I think he got an A minus. He was right there for me. So let me know in the comments what you're thinking with a player grade there. And as I say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you on the next one. All right, peace.